Planning Committee, the first meeting of 2018, so Happy New Year to all. I'm Councillor Eddie Labour, the Committee Chairman. If I do apologies for absence first, please.
Apologies received from Councillor Morgan with Councillor Chamdal substituting.
Welcome to Councillor Chamdal, yes. Any declarations of interest? No. We have the minutes of the meeting 5th of December in the bundle. Can I take those as true and accurate?
Yeah.
Agreed. There are no matters notified in advance or urgent. The agenda we will consider is all in part one and is the agenda that was published by the Head of Planning. There have been no changes at all. Okay. This is a meeting of the Planning Committee held in public, not a public meeting. Therefore, the rights to address the committee are as set out in the Council's constitution, as summarised in the committee papers and as I will outline in a moment. The meeting is on the Council's YouTube website. It will be streamed live. The cameras face this end of the room, so we're all visible. You are only visible at the point where you are talking. The audience section isn't visible. We're not expecting fire alarms tonight, so if they do go off, we will be leaving. A door over there and a door behind me would be the two best ways. Can I please ask that all mobile phones are switched off, or at least to silence? I've done my own, so that's good, because it's got a particularly bad ring. Okay, in terms of the meeting, there's only one item tonight for the petition, which is the opening item 297 Long Lane. Officers will give a presentation and show some slides, which are in addition to the written report members have already had and will have reviewed. Petitioners have 5 minutes to address us. Members may ask you questions afterwards. The applicants or their agents, and I see they're in the room, so I presume they're intending to speak as well, as is Councillor Graham, a ward councillor. You'll get 5 on the traffic lights, 4 green, 1 amber, and you get to red. That's you done. The voting members of committee tonight, I'll do it the other way around tonight. I'll start on my left just to make it totally different. Councillor Duncan, Councillor Dillon, Councillor Oswald coming this way, and then Councillor Edwards, Councillor Yarrow, Councillor Higgins, Councillor Chamdal and Councillor Stead going down the table. If between all of them they manage to get to a tied vote, you'll find out whether I agree or disagree. Other than that, you don't get to know. Highways tonight is Peter Loveday. James McClellan-Smith is doing some of the presenting. Mandeep Malhotra is doing the rest of it, and I'll leave them work out who gets what, but I think I may know. James Roger, our Head of Planning, is with me to provide advice, and East Hedgie from Democratic Services is our clerk, and Roisin Hogan is the planning lawyer. There are some feedback forms in orange on the chairs if you wish to provide feedback to Democratic Services. There you go, you get a plug as well tonight. Okay, with all of that done, I'm going to move straight, please, to agenda item 6297, Long Lane. Mandy, I think this is your one.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. The application before us, item 6, is 297 Long Lane, which is the former Dairy Crest, or United Dairies site off Long Lane. So the access is just here to the east of the site, off Long Lane itself, and to provide some context, just up here is the Hillingdon station, and this is the small retail parade at the top end of Long Lane. The application here proposes the demolition of the dairy site and the erection of a 4-storey building to provide 33 residential units. The site has been identified as having potential for residential development through the Council's emerging site allocation plan. Just to note that the emerging plan is not yet a formal material planning consideration. It's still going through the process, but there is a direction of travel to see this site redeveloped. If I take you through the application site plans, the application site is outlined here. The site to the, so there is residential here, all the way along Long Lane, and then the properties along Long Lane themselves, sorry, that's Tudor Way. Long Lane itself is commercial at ground floor. There may be some commercial at some upper levels, but there is also residential at upper levels along this stretch. So this is the existing depot building, which you will see in the site photos later, primarily covers the entirety of the site. It's fairly shallow, clad, traditional warehouse structures. I apologise about the quality of this plan, but it's trying to show you the proposed layout plan. So we obviously saw the extent of site coverage of the depot, which is primarily the extent of the application site. The area is covered grey. If we go to the proposed plan, the vehicular entrance remains via Long Lane, and car parking is provided at the top end of the site, so to the east, and the new residential building is this area here. So it's set in from the boundaries of the application site itself and set quite far away from the Long Lane premises because of the location of the car parking on site. These are the proposed ground floor plans. So the ground floor, the first floor and the second floor are uniform in form. They go up 3 stories, and the third floor has been recessed in height. So all what we would otherwise refer to as the top floor, is recessed from the site boundaries, or the building edge boundaries. Provide some context. So this is the proposed eastern elevation, which would face the back of the Long Lane properties. This is the northern elevation, the southern elevation facing the Tudor Way properties. So that's the 2-storey residential properties to the south, and this is the western elevation. This is just a plan form of all the elevations we've just seen, and just to provide some context, this is a cross-section. I'm not sure how clear it is to see, but there is a red line, I will try and indicate it here, which shows the size of the size and the extent of the existing warehouse factory building, just to help you understand and provide some context about there being only a marginal increase in height, and as a result of setting the building in, it's actually further from the various residential buildings and commercial properties on the various elevations of this site. So that's just showing a demolition plan, showing the extent of everything proposed to be demolished on the application site itself. These are images of the site. So this is from the main vehicular access off Long Lane with the existing warehouse structures just here. The intern looking to the west. So this is a view towards the site from the eastern end of Tudor Way, and a view from Tudor Way showing numbers 2A and 2B, which are newer infill developments on Tudor Way. This is a view from Tudor Way showing number 4, and the retail parade along Long Lane, but on the opposite side of the road to the application site. And this is the view from the alley between 303 and 305 Long Lane, so adjoining the application site. We will run through this, but there is an alleyway that runs between so this is the application site, and these are existing residential properties of Magnolia Court on the northern side of the application site. And this is just to provide some context about the scale of the existing building and also its proximity to the existing buildings on Magnolia Court, and there will be more of a set-in as a result of the proposed development, so it will not have this impact that the existing building has. So the application before us is recommended for approval. The building is considered to be comparable in scale with the surrounding development, particularly buildings on the eastern side of Long Lane, which include 3-storey pitch roof structures with rooms in the roof forms. The recessed nature of the site would also reduce the street scene impact. The building would be recessed further from the site boundaries, and therefore neighbouring dwellings would also be set back. Sorry, the setback between them would be greater. Apologies. It would not be significantly greater in height, so we established that by the site section plan that we tabled earlier. The site landscaping would also introduce green elements to the site. At present, there is no greenery in the application site. It is an industrial dairy site and is covered pure by significant warehouse buildings. Sufficient distances are retained between the building and the neighbouring properties to prevent the building from appearing overbearing and causing overshadowing to windows and balconies. The roof terrace has been that has been allowed on the southern part of the building looks towards Tudor Way, but also is restricted in terms of its use. The site has an existing access, including a turning bay, and it is not considered there will be a material increase in the number of vehicle movements. Parking provision on the site, which was demonstrated to the eastern part of the site, is sufficient for a development of this nature, and albeit it has a low PTAL rating, it is in very close proximity to Hillingdon Station. The constraints of the site and the cost of remediation and demolition works mean that it's not viable to provide affordable housing within the development. We have received a viability report which has been independently reviewed, and the recommendations were that a financial contribution should be made towards affordable housing, and that has been secured via a Section 106 in the application committee report. The application is recommended for approval. There is an addendum to this agenda item, before I forget, but there are also a few verbal updates that we need to set out. So we have not set out the number of disabled parking bays, so we are tabling a change to condition number 7, to seek to secure 4 disabled bays, and clarify that in the wording of the condition. It's also proposed to delete condition 11 because it is a duplication of number 7, and that was an error. Condition 9 seeks to secure car parking for future residents, which is free. Now, we have not tabled the wording of this condition. We're still working on the wording. You might recall that this issue came up on the Nestlé planning application, so we wanted to try and ensure that the parking spaces weren't sold or leased, causing later problems. So we're proposing to use the same wording as the Nestlé application to seek to secure parking for future residents only, not for lease and not for sale. And it's going to be delegated to the head of planning as long as you're happy for the same wording from the Nestlé application to be used on this application. Thank you.
Okay. Petitioners on this one? If you'd like to come forward, take a seat at the table. If you press the button on the middle of the microphone will light up. And that shows it's working. If you just state your name at the start, so make sure we've got it correct for our records.
Okay. Good evening. My name's Hugh Bradstreet. I live in Tudor Way. That house. Okay, so main objection from the 48 petitioners that I represent today is to do with the construction being 4 stories high. No other building in the area has the same impact as this construction, this proposed construction. Each elevation overlooks something, including the mainly east, south and west elevations, which overlook residential properties which are currently not overlooked today in any way, shape or form in the same manner. So that's the main objection there. This compromises our privacy in an excessive way, we feel, and also security, being overlooked from a place that hasn't been accessible before, and having access onto the site which leads onto the back of properties gives an access path into people's gardens potentially that doesn't exist today. So that's our concern on the security side. That's really it. Yeah.
So you've got height and security are the 2 things that you're not comfortable with?
Yes. I've actually submitted a couple of pictures in addition, which helps to emphasise the view. I
think
from
members
properties.
have seen those.
Yeah.
They were circulated a day or 2 ago. So if those are your pictures, they have gone round. Yeah.
It's an attempt to show that the screening indicated in the south elevation, that the tree line does not go towards providing a natural screening that is indicated in that diagram.
Okay. Do members have any questions? I think it's fairly straightforward what's been said. No? Okay. Thank you very much. I'll now hear from the applicants.
This is a plan that's already been shown earlier, but it's just clear. Would you mind passing that on?
Okay. As long as James is happy to pass it, we will.
Should I just clarify, members, what this is?
Yeah.
This is just a copy of that plan that Mandy referred to with the outline on the building. That plan.
So it's a better version of it.
And then it actually shows a slightly clearer version of the layout plan that was a bit faint here. So then, just to clarify, the agent's not actually tabling anything new. So I'm quite comfortable with this being circulated.
Right.
That there's nothing inappropriate being done.
When you're ready, gentlemen.
Thank you. My name is Sam Tiffin, Progress Planning. I'm a Chartered Town Planner and advisor to the applicant, along with my colleague Richard. Firstly, I'd like to thank the very detailed presentation by the presenting officer, along with the case officer, putting forward a robust and detailed planning report recommending the application for approval tonight, which I hope you're able to support. The application, for your information, was submitted in June of 2017, and as a result, extensive negotiations have taken place to get to the point of recommending the application to you tonight. Namely, the adjustments resulted in a reduction of the size scale of the top floor, removal of the balconies and windows on the top floor, specifically flanking Tudor Way, additional car parking added, and enhanced landscaping and planting to the scheme. In terms of principle of development, as the presenting officer set out, it is an emerging allocation, but it's not allocated yet. However, we have submitted an economic and marketing report confirming there are far more appropriate and modern premises for storage and distribution, making this old dairy depot site obsolete. In addition, the proposed residential development would make for the most efficient use of this large existing brownfield site, which, even if it was in use as a distribution facility, it would employ only a limited amount of people, providing limited employment opportunities. Given the site's allocation and location, the proposed building does not have a direct street frontage due to its positioning to the rear of the shopping parade that fronts Long Lane. As such, the building will be largely screened from view by the surrounding buildings. The building typology in this location changes to the south, where there is generally a more suburban feel, but it is within a district town centre. The type and character of buildings are much larger, and as a result, it is important to optimise these sustainable, underutilised brownfield sites in line with parameters of policy. The proposal has been designed to be sympathetic in this regard, with the fourth floor set well back with no balconies or roof terraces to flank onto neighbouring properties, which will prevent any perception of overlooking. In addition, the tract of land immediately to the south, which buffers Tudor Way, is of benefit of a blanket TPO and comprises a number of significant trees which do assist in softening the development from Tudor Way. Given the setback and distances to surrounding properties, coupled by the development being well screened from the surrounding area, the proposal is not considered to give rise to amenity concerns with regards to neighbouring properties. With regards to Magnolia Court, the proposed building is located 10.5 metres further back from these neighbours when compared to the existing warehouse, and overall this greater setback would improve outlook, daylight to these properties. Similar, given the site's location and relatively modest scale of the proposal with its flat roof, it would not be particularly visible from the surrounding area. As such, the proposal would have a limited impact on the spatial character and would sit comfortably within its setting. In terms of highways, a highway improvement strategy is being proposed with £130,000 being payable towards improved air quality, which will also entail highway improvement works. And with respect to car parking, there are 36 off-street car parking in excess of one space per flat. 34 cycle parking spaces will also be provided. And nevertheless, we have agreed that the future occupiers would not have rights to parking permits. With regards to affordable housing, our viability has been scrutinised and it's been deemed unviable. Nevertheless, through extensive negotiations, the applicant has agreed, nevertheless, to pay £100,000 towards off-site affordable housing provision. Overall, the building we consider is of a very high quality, will make a positive contribution to the locality and surrounding area. It will sit comfortably within the site and include soft landscaping that would improve visually and not only ecological amenity value of the site, specifically given the total site coverage of built form at present. To conclude, The proposal will have a positive effect on this part of the town centre compared to the existing unattractive warehouse. It will provide 33 high-quality flats within close proximity to the tube station while benefiting the economic viability of the local businesses. Overall, we feel it complies with the Hillingdon's policies, and we hope you can support the application. Thank you.
I would just also like to add that in response to the petitioner and the plan we've just provided, the proposed building would be located 38 metres from Tudor Way, and that's much more than the 21-metre requirement by council, and also the section also indicates it complies with the British Research Establishment Standard.
Okay,
thank you.
We are on time, just about. Any members' questions, Councillor Higgins?
Yeah, so you indicated on your drawing that you just passed around that there's that 20 metre plus obviously the distance to the properties. Who owns that land?
I don't know exactly who owns it, but it's not owned by any neighbouring property. It's sort of landlocked by a party, which
okay.
I'm not of that information. I don't have that.
Okay,
information.
fine. The second question is that you've also supplied us an artistic impression on one of our drawings, which is page 184, and it shows tree lines, but I don't see any tree lines in this plan. Can you put up 184, please? You've indicated there that go back one second. You indicated there's trees, but they don't seem to be on here. Where are those trees?
Sorry, is this on the plan?
You see there. You can see that you've indicated that there is some sort of trees there.
Yes, the trees are within that sort of landlocked parcel of land along the boundary of the site.
And there's a blanket TPO on that site protecting those
Okay.
trees.
But why are they not indicated on any of the plans then?
They're not located within the application site.
Yeah, but you've implied. What I'm trying to say, I appreciate they're not your trees.
Yeah.
But if I was trying to sell this, I would try to show that they're on here somewhere.
Yeah, it's very hard to give an exact indication. It is an indicative illustration.
Okay, I think we've got the information we've got.
That's fine. Yes, thank you very much.
Councillor Oswald.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation and thank you for the petition. Did you say that there was a gap of 38 metres between the rear of this development and the rear of Tudor Way?
The rear of the properties.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yep. Okay, Councillor Duncan.
Yeah. Can you tell me why there is no affordable housing? This is 33 units. The policy is 35%. So one would expect something like about 10, 11, 12 units, and we're not getting any units, and we're getting 100,000, which I doubt is even going to provide one unit.
Councillor, I think I might refer to page 36, 37 of the report.
I've seen that.
Okay.
I've seen that in the report,
Okay.
but I'd like them to answer that, please.
In terms of viability, I'm not an economic viability consultant, but I understand the calculations that need to go in to providing the output of whether a site is viable and unviable. But it comes down to the abnormals of the site clearance, the existing use value of the site, and numerous other matters which are heavily detailed within the viability. And it is a result. It's a technical exercise, and that is the result of the assessment.
Okay, thank you. There are no further questions. Thank you, gentlemen. Councillor Graham, please.
Good evening, Chairman and Committee. Whilst one has to applaud the fact that this large, unused and derelict brownfield site is in line to be developed, unfortunately, as is so often the case, even with the reduced number to 33 units over 4 floors, the block, as was stated by the petitioner, is too large in scale, bulk and density, making it overbearing within the context of the local scene and the properties in close proximity. And despite the flat roof system, the 3 floors rather than 4, that doesn't alter the situation. Furthermore, consideration has to be given to the likely added strain on the local infrastructure. Inevitably, many of the surrounding residential properties will suffer from overlooking from such a tall structure, and in the case of houses in Tudor Way, that back onto the site. I think it should be conditioned that the intervening tree shield must include trees of sufficient height and type in order to provide a good level of privacy, especially during winter months, to prevent overlooking. You've seen photographs of the situation. I'm not clear on the TPO situation. I'd like clarification of that, especially as we now hear that the strip of land, which is between the back of Tudor Way and this development, no owner has been declared this evening. So I'd like some information on that, please. The fact of the matter is I support the petition as presented, but wish to see it, and therefore wish to see it refused. There are things that have puzzled me with this, and one of them is the fact that whilst it's down for approval, it doesn't actually say so in the report as far as I can see. It seems to be a succession of many conditions which are down to the head of planning to approve, and I'd like, please, for the benefit of people here, to be told how that works out in the fullness. Thank you very much.
Did anybody have any questions for the councillor before I clarify a couple of matters? Okay, thank you. In terms of this report, this is entirely normal for a major applications report. It is an approval report, which is what the officer said, but the approval is always subject to the S106 legal agreement being signed. If the applicants fail to sign that in accordance with what's been laid out, then the application would be refused on that basis. But it is an approval report, but it's entirely normal. The phrasing is entirely normal for a larger site. It's different to what we get on the small sites, but it's entirely as I would expect to see it. Apart from that. Okay, who wants to start me off on this one? Councillor Higgins, go on.
I do have some concerns in picking up what the petitioner says and the councillor has said, that, and also what Councillor Duncan said. There's a few issues for me that I'm a bit concerned about here. One, I know it was here, and I understand in page 38, 36 and 37, but 100,000 does seem rather low. I mean, I don't know how they calculated it, but maybe they can do my accounts for me, because that'd be brilliant if I could get that.
The difficulty is we all know.
I appreciate that. I do appreciate that, but I do.
We don't have any sight of it, and therefore have no way of verifying it. We have to accept it's been checked.
Through you, Chairman, I do. I respect what's doing. I'm just making a point of it because I think officers really need to explain to me a bit more about that. I am concerned about who owns the land between Tudor Way.
We can clarify that in a moment.
That'd be great if someone can answer that question. And also, the council also mentioned about the TPOs. Can we have some information that those trees are there? And if they're not there, or something's happened to them, or whatever, can someone put them back, or something similar back as soon as possible? That's all I really have to say. I really do find it very difficult for us to not approve this on many issues, because it ticks all those policies and guidelines. But it is just that slightly a bit high. But anyway, I think I said enough. I'll let other committee members try to convince me to vote against it.
We can clarify on the land. I'll ask James to comment on the S1 on the affordable housing. Then I'm closing that one down because we're going round in a circle. We can't do anything with in a minute.
I think I can quickly cover a number of the points that are raised. So I actually did a bit of preparation for the meeting tonight by getting the official copy of title of that bit of land today. So it's 10th of Jan as of 12:41. So it's pretty up to date, the bit of paper I've got in front of you, and it says that the title was transferred in 2000 to William George Frank Keeler and R.D. Keeler Properties Limited. That's definitely not the applicant, and I'm pretty sure that's not a particular neighbour on Tudor Way, although I couldn't confirm that 100%, but I know it's definitely not the applicant because we know who the applicant is. There is an area TPO covering literally the whole of Tudor Way. Now, that does create a slight difficulty because sometimes with TPOs you have a specific TPO that highlights there's an oak tree and then there's a plan that shows you exactly where it is. The TPO map, I know this may not be completely clear, it literally covers about half that constraints plan. So literally the whole of Tudor Way is wiped over in terms of an area TPO. So there is a bit of a difficulty in terms of where we are as to whether any trees have or haven't been removed. I do accept, as this is now in the public realm, we probably should be investigating it further. But what I would say is I don't believe for 1 minute if there's any trees that have been removed, it's anything to do with the applicant whose application you're determining tonight, because it's not to do with their land. There's no TPOs on their land.
Yeah, can I come back? Through you, Chairman, can I come back? Two things there. Firstly, obviously that's another property company. Obviously it's not related to this company.
Yeah.
So they can't build anything on there anyway.
Because they're landlocked.
They're landlocked now.
They're going to have to find a way out. So.
Do they need permission, or someone needs to find out about who they are before we go ahead with it?
I don't think.
If I can say a simple point, the application before you concerns a brownfield site where, as was explained in Bandit's presentation, it is proposed for release for housing.
Right.
The bit of land we're talking about is a greenfield bit of land that I'm sure many members would refer to as a backland site.
Okay, fine.
So I won't go further than that.
The only thing I'd come back to you on, through you, Chairman, again, is that the TPO thing, as long as it's indicated of what the plans are in front of me on page 184, that those trees are in place. I don't care what about the other ones, to be truthful. That's what I'm concerned about. Okay, they've indicated that hang on, let me think. The applicant's indicated that there is a tree line there on that drawing, James. Okay, so I want to make sure that that tree line does exist, not that because if that exists, I'm quite happy. If it doesn't exist, I'm not happy.
If there's any trees on within the applicant's application site that members wish retained, we could obviously seek to retain those trees. But the trees we're referring to are not within the red application site. So they're almost a bit of a red herring, dare I say, because they're not within the applicant's control what happens to those trees. And the actual key point here is that there's a 38-metre distance, and I suspect members are aware that that distance means there isn't a refusal reason concerning impact on Tudor Way properties, because we'd be looking at, is it less than 21 metres, would be the kind of distances, would be then into territory in terms of, is there a reason to refuse this application? If I can just clarify the final point on affordable housing, in writing the report, officers were mindful that there's a third-party viability consultant. In this case, it's the District Valuation Service, who are very experienced in these matters, and they're experts in their field, and they're satisfied. We did add some extra text just to assist members in understanding that not only have the DVS said that it's unviable, but they've concurred that there is abnormal costs. And that's why the report set those out. So we've given a bit more detail than I'll be honest, we do sometimes in committee reports. But another point I would raise is where I, as head of planning, have a slight concern with these valuations is when they're in a location where there's rapidly rising property values. Yeah. And in Hillingdon, that relates to our two Crossrail stations. It does not relate to Long Lane. So I just give that as another kind of reference point as to help members as to how far they may wish to take that particular issue, that this is not anywhere near either of our two Crossrail stations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Who was coming? Councillor, yeah, well, I'll go either way. Councillor Yarrow, then Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Chairman. It's relevant to what Councillor Higgins was saying. Clearly, this tree line has been put on page 184 because it's pertinent as far as the applicant is concerned to show that there is tree cover. On the photographs that I've seen that came in today, there is no tree cover that I can see. Now, there's clearly a difference. I would like to know where this tree line came from. It's come out of some document from somewhere that says this is the height of these trees. The photographs that we got today show that the trees are missing, and we really need to know what's going on.
Do we have a roving mic, or? So it's just, I'm going to get up, as it might be easier to point. But so if one goes along the properties on Tudor Way, there's only one that doesn't have a big mature tree at the end of the garden. That's number 2. Now, so that's so for starters, that's the only one that doesn't have a large tree. I believe the majority of these trees are deciduous trees that are only going to be in leaf part of the year, so that's obviously a factor in itself. But I really think that the issue here is the distance away, not the trees.
No, I would agree with what you said.
Well, okay, the two may not be exactly the same. I think the head of planning's done his best to explain the situation. We've got a 38-metre gap, and that's where I would have to focus you guys if you come back at me in a moment to turn this around, because 38 metres is very difficult to defend when 21 is our standard, so we're almost double that. And we do have certainly some vegetation cover as well. So, Councillor Duncan, did you want to come in to this debate?
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm looking at the north elevation of these plans.
Which page?
Which is on page 183, and the accompanying third floor plan is on page 181. So there's the elevations on 183 and the plan on 181.
So 181, 183 is where we need to be.
And the situation I'm looking at is these properties on this elevation are the ones closest to the nearest residential properties, which I think are
the flats on the other side, Magnolia Court, or one of those?
1, 2, 3, 4,
I think it's Magnolia.
5. Yeah, is that Magnolia Court? I realise that it's set back from these. Could we just know how far it's set back, please?
Should know that, hopefully. And it. What's set back at the top, in other words, is the question?
Because to me, if you gauge a parking space as 4.8 or 5 metres, just looking roughly at those parking spaces, the distance between that and the rear of number 5, for example, is not 21 metres by the submitted plans. I mean, we have no means of measuring it here, but...
I'm hoping.
Because it's the side elevation at number 5, that separation distance is only necessary, so
it's not the side elevation, sorry, it's the rear. It's the side elevation to 6.
Oh, sorry, it is in the committee report in section 7.08, page 33, that the degree of separation should be 15 metres, but is actually 13 metres, so there is a marginal shortfall in the separation distance, but it's basing a flank elevation, so side elevation, rather than a habitable room facing windows.
Sorry, Chair, maybe I've not made myself clear.
Sorry.
Sorry, if I can just... Could you go back to that?
If we can find it. No, that's the wrong one.
No.
It's not it.
Go back to the site layout, block plan.
Stop.
Yeah, it's a bit faint. What about the coloured one? I think that might show it. Go back. Yeah. What I'm talking about is not the relationship here, but the relationship here. And this is front and rear. This isn't flank elevation here.
But the building is further set back, isn't it, at that point?
No, it isn't. My point is that I don't think that this is 21 metres. And the reason I'm concerned about that is because there appears to be a window on that top level. It's not quite clear, and it's in very, very minute annotation, which I can't read from here. And also, of course, there are balconies. So unless, so people just coming out onto balconies would look across. And I think that there may be an infringement at that point. And if there is, I would like to know what it is, please. Thank you.
On page 183, though, the north elevation has got no... Has it got any windows? I can't see that it has. It's got...
Chair, it appears to have a central one, which if you look on the plan, 181, there's a central window. Would it assist if I showed you what I'm looking at?
Yeah,
So the window-
it always helps sometimes in this business.
The window is a secondary window to the main living area with the principal elevation facing the
This
west.
window,
That one there.
that one there, which is a full length
The window could be
183,
obscured.
which is this.
Is that a window too?
That's a window, but I can't see what this says. So that area,
No, I-
that little...
Way beyond my eyesight.
Yeah.
Way beyond mine. The councillor is drawing our attention just for everyone, so that we're all in the same place. Page 181 and the middle window at the top.
Yes.
Yes, Amanda? We're all in the same place. What is it? Can we put the mic
Sorry,
on so we
it's
hear
a
you?
secondary window serving the kitchen, living, dining area. But because it's a secondary window with the primary elevation facing
That's western, not northern.
west, we could require the window to be
I
obscure
think the head of planning is just about to amend a planning condition on my right, which may solve the problem. It looks like we're dealing with secondary windows and therefore we can obscure glaze them, which would seem like the answer.
So we already have a condition, and it's referenced in the addendum, that
The western.
seeks to ensure that the windows on the rest elevation that are meant to be obscure glazed are obscure glazed. We just need to amend that condition to cover this secondary window.
Yes. Could I further add then, Chair, that where this window is shown here, which we've just pointed out, that yes, it may be a secondary window to this window and door, which opens onto this sort of terraced area here. This is shown as a door area at the side, and you've then got, although there's no access to this part, you've then got access out here.
Yeah, the access is west.
Yeah, but people don't face west. They move about and look.
There's a balcony screening on that balcony, and the privacy screening is somewhere in the conditions. I just can't remember where at the moment.
But it's not that high. It's not shown.
Chairman,
Thank you for helping me. I like to be helped.
if I may, the advantage of an iPad is you can really pull out the detail. It shows on the plan obscure glazed window that we're talking about, and it shows the privacy screen at 1.8 metres high.
There we go. Thank you. We'll have to go iPads. That is obviously the way forward with this matter.
That addresses privacy. What is the distance? That's what I'm saying. Because if you've got a 2-storey or 3-storey building facing another building, then there's a distance to be considered there. Particularly as there may not be overlooking, but there's possible sort of disturbance, noise, that kind of intrusion that does affect privacy.
So I've just measured the distance, and it's 18 metres from the fourth floor of the proposed development to the rear elevation of number 5 that you had concerns about. So that's from the flank elevation that has no windows. It's 18 metres away from the back of number 5. So that exceeds the 15 metres it's required to...
Thank you very much.
Okay, we've bottomed that one out. Anybody else? Because we're not... So far we've done fairly lengthy on this one, but I'm not coming anywhere close at the moment to anything that changes the officer report. Councillor Dillon.
And we certainly won't now that I'm speaking.
Somebody's got it. That's what.
Just a little bit of clarification.
Okay.
Privacy screening. What kind of screening would we be looking at? Because what's shown on the plan at the moment, and a small child could jump over, but
It's conditioned in the.
I've seen it on there, but we could have an example just for a bit of reassurance. The height of it, possibly, or
1.8 is the average height, and that's to prevent issues of overlooking between premises.
obscured.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you going to move me forward, or are you going to got something else?
I am going to move you forward. I must say my initial thoughts when reading this report at home was that they were trying to squeeze too much in, and that there were factors that would suggest that the lack of shortfall in amenity space, some of the closeness of the distances of the boundary fence with the outlook on the ground floor. But the more I've looked into it, the more we've heard the presentation, that profile showing the excess height over the existing says that we are talking at the margins. And so for me, this is an unbalanced one. It is quite close to the town. Well, it's adjacent to the mixed-use town centre bit, albeit that it then abuts immediately the suburban area. Even if we were to classify this as suburban, the density matrix would suggest this is only marginally above it. And for those reasons, the fact that it is policy compliant, I would see that there are no substantive grounds for us to refuse this application. And so I move that we go with the officer's recommendations.
Have a second. I think I have two seconders. Okay, for clarity, so that's the officer recommendation as amended in the addendum, and that's quite significant, together with the number of disabled parking spaces, and that condition we're delegating to the head of planning to reword condition 9 to ensure it complies with the one we're going to use on the Nestle site.
Yeah. Can I also just...
And delete condition 11, yes, thank you.
Just a quick look through, because I think there's some doubling of 24 repeats 14.
The addendum takes out a whole load.
Thank you.
Which is why I referred to the addendum particularly. Right, all those in favour, please clearly show. What have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against, those abstaining, that must be 2 then. 6 to 2. 6 with 2 abstentions. That one's approved. Thank you very much indeed. Okay. Let us gather a little pace, if we might, because otherwise the north is going to be a long night. Can I take you to agenda item 7? And I'm just going to pull this one up. This is the listed building consent for the planning application that you approved prior to Christmas. It didn't have a listed building consent with it at the time. It's deemed it does need it. On that basis, I would propose that we don't need an officer presentation. We've always raised suggested.
I would propose that, and I would also move the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. That's item 7 dealt with then. Show of hands, sorry, I'm moving too quickly now, thank you. Right, item 8, I'm not going to do the same thing for because I can't. Item 8 is an amendment to a Heathrow hotel scheme. So the officers will do us a brief presentation on this because we don't need chapter and verse because it's already a very large scheme to start with. Go on, James, please.
Thank you, Chair. So we have here it's a variation application for an existing outline approval for hotel development adjacent to Cessna Road at Heathrow Airport. The changes have been set out in the report, but by and large they reflect to a marginal increase in the height to allow for an additional storey in the hotel, which in effect, after internal reorganisation as well, adds another 2 metres to the overall height of the building. In addition to that, there's also an intention to provide a small recessed ballroom mounted on the roof of the building, which steps well in from the sides, and I will show you on the elevation drawings shortly. You may see as well that the disabled parking, which was initially to be provided, so I've not used this pointer before, is it that? Roughly here, has now been moved into this building here, which is the multi-storey car park serving Heathrow Airport. an elevated walkway will be provided between the car park and the hotel. The overall amount of parking bays for disabled users has been reduced, but this is, given the nature of the use of the site, it's been deemed to be acceptable because it's in a unique situation, being a hotel serving the airport. There is a precedent of bespoke disabled car parking ratios within the Heathrow Airport development, which I know the Head of Planning is familiar with, should any members wish to question that. If I just run through now, the site here, as you can see, this is the overpass which leads up to the drop-off area for Terminal 2. This is this Cessna Road which runs below it there, and this is the site. What you can't see there is the building actually, this is on the exposed part of the site. This area of the building goes underneath the underpass, so to speak, so it's effectively contained. If I just go through to the elevations, before I go there, this is the proposed boardroom, which, as you can see, the edges of the building, I'm just tracing out there. The boardroom, which is just over 3 metres in height, flat roof structure, be stepped in like this, and I will show you the elevations. This is just a plan that's been sent in to show the route from the proposed disabled parking within the multi-storey car park to the elevated walkway, and there is the elevated walkway itself. So you can see here the revised elevations of the building. This is the boardroom. Again, the plans are rather faint, I'm afraid, but you can see the boardroom structure I'm tracing out here, which is added. The rest, the additional storey has been assimilated into the overall design of the building as previously approved. I just have an earlier drawing from the outline application here. And again, I'll just cycle through the various elevations of the building as varied. Again, you can see that the proposed boardroom, apologies again for the faintness, but is located there. The application is recommended to be approved, subject to deed of variation to the Section 106, which has been signed. I'd also draw your attention to the addendum, which just includes some amendments to Condition 7, which has just been sharpened up, so it's fully reflective of the revised schemes. Thank you.
There's additional bit of information I think members may be interested in. So part of the reason the building went up 2 metres in height since members last approved it is they've had an expert fire safety person who's looked at the entire build and done a whole raft of recommendations, and part of that led to the 2 metre increase, and then you got the boardroom. And there's what may appear quite odd to members is Condition 27, but that's just us as officers saying, well, we're here to have an expert fire safety officer giving various indications. Why not put those in the planning condition? So that's what that one's about, if members think it looks slightly odd. Mandy?
Sorry, one final point. I know that the number of disabled bays is actually reducing, but it is set out on page 74 that there's an enhanced drop-off area, and with this being a hotel use, it's more likely that they will be dropped off by taxi, so it's an on-balance acceptable provision.
Okay, there is one more thing I think a couple of members have drawn to my attention already. I think if you compare this report with the one that follows it, there are some condition discrepancies. I'm not going to try and unravel them here, but I'm going to ask for members, if they approve this in a moment, to delegate to the Head of Planning to review both reports and ensure that we do some mirroring, because if things are appropriate on one, they may well be appropriate on the other.
Agreed. Thank you, Chairman. I don't believe this to be particularly contentious, and I would move the officer's recommendation. I would expressly ask, though, that control of noise conditions are put in, and also control of air pollution.
Yeah, well, there were a number of things there.
And it may be worth the informative regarding the Environment Agency's flagging up the gas chimney, that it could be impacting them. It might be worth that as an informative as well.
Also, the Head of Planning is going to have to be delegated to sort out Condition 7, which is currently not.
And there is a duplicate condition in there as well. So.
Yeah.
You worry about noise at the airport?
Yeah.
No, but it's ensuring that noise
on those trying to sleep in it.
Suitable noise protection is built into the building. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you. All those in favour, please clearly show. Thank you. That one's approved. Item 9 is a very similar application for more space. More straightforward, I think, than the last one. Does anybody need a presentation on item 9?
I'll move it, Chairman.
And show of hands, please. The conditions are already being reviewed on that, and thank you for that. I now move to item 10, which is a change of use from Class B8 storage distribution to flexible B1, B2, B8. The clarification in this one, the report isn't totally clear. In places it refers to something being demolished. I'm told that is not the case. There's no demolition in this, it's a straightforward change of use. And it is 10 park cycle spaces are being requested in condition 9 now. And that is it. Sorry.
Recognising the distances to closest residential areas, for me it's a straightforward change of use. A presentation isn't particularly necessary.
Is anyone going to disagree with that?
We'll go with the officer's recommendations.
Right, done and seconded. All those in favour, please clearly show. Thank you very much indeed. It's good now. Right, item 11, which is the reserve matters on St Andrews Park. We will need something on this, please, because it's a bit more complicated. This is you.
Thank you, Chair. I just gather myself. Item 11 we have here is for the phase known as DICE, which is part of the wider St Andrews Park redevelopment. This is an application involving the submission of reserve matters following the earlier approval of outline permission. Site, I will cycle through to now. On the layout plans which have been provided, these are the existing plans. They've been split into the north and south. So we have the north and the south. For context, the site is adjacent to what is referred to as the residential triangle, which is the element of the development which is currently underway as we speak. So, following submission of these details, we are looking at overall provision of 7 buildings, which is reduced from the 8 initially proposed at outline stage. The reduction has been made as a result of design and amenity concerns. The amount of units provided within the buildings, I'll just go to that, sorry, has also been marginally increased from 78 to 101. This is not considered to be a significant impact overall, and it's offset by the fact that there's been a shortfall in delivery of residential units at phases 1 to 3 of the development. Just cycle through to some elevation drawings. So do let me know if you want me to go back to floor plans. The building's been designed to have the main facade engaging with the green area to the rear. But landscaping is to be provided in order to soften the impact on the district park and provide a smooth transition between the built form and the district park. The plans, which I'll move on to now, show a green link which will be provided between the, if I highlight it here, between the residential triangle leading through to the district park. Car parking has largely been accommodated within basements so as to reduce the impact of parked cars visually. All units meet the requirements for internal floor space, and the external amenity provision is in excess of minimum standards. Although no affordable housing is to be provided within this phase of the development, the Section 106 attached to the outline consent requires a 15% provision across the whole St Andrews Park development, so any lack of affordable housing at this phase will be compensated for in other phases of the development. The application is recommended for approval. We do have some photographs of the site. Obviously, a lot has changed since this aerial image. This is a photograph that was taken from the residential triangle site, looking towards the DICE site here, behind the tree line. Again, I apologise for the contrast on the screen there, which doesn't make it particularly clear. This is a clear image, again looking past the tree line onto the DICE site. This is just an update of the latest appearance of the residential triangle, and this is looking towards the site, apologies again, there is a fence line here. The DICE site is located behind that fence line, and the residential triangle is again further to the rear there, and here is District Park. The application is recommended for approval, and I will hand over to you. Thank you.
Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, I like 23 as marginal. It's quite good, isn't it? The only question I've got really, apart from that, I'll agree with those recommendations, is that obviously the calculation now, because there is more, that the 15% has to be more on the other side, correct?
15% is 15%, isn't it? 15% whatever total.
It will be taken on the additional figures, correct? Yeah?
But I think the officer did say, there's been a shortfall in previous phases.
Just to clarify, we're not heading to a scenario where there'll be more units than the outline approved.
Right. Okay.
It's just this particular phase
has got
a higher number than the outline shows.
So this 23 will be taken off somewhere else?
It has already been taken off, I think the officer presentation said.
From 8 to 7 blocks actually means that, yes, the numbers have gone up, but actually the distances between units are now compliant, whereas they might not have been before.
Fine, well, I'll go with officer's recommendation on that one.
Councillor Oswald?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favour, please clearly show. Thank you, that one's done. The last one is 205-207 Harefield Road, Uxbridge. There is a significant addendum on this one, and I'll highlight it now, including a request from the applicant that this was withdrawn from the agenda. The head of planning has set out his reasons why he doesn't believe that is appropriate.
Chairman, can I just declare that I did receive the email which I forwarded, but I also received a phone call from the applicant today making that request. I engage in no further conversation with him, but that's just for transparency.
Thank you for that clarification. James, you ready?
Thank you, Chair. So here we have an application to effectively amalgamate these two current detached dwellings that you see here, two-storey dwellings, into a single building, in addition to various extensions involving raising of the roof and changing of the roof form to a crown roof to provide additional accommodation space. Following extension, the intention is to convert the building as a whole to provide 20 separate units of residential accommodation, and the mix of units is included within the officer report. So here we have the existing floor layouts. You can see here the two detached dwellings, elevations here of the current dwellings. We have the side views to provide a bit of context because the topography here is quite pronounced. And here, again, slightly faded, unfortunately, you see the buildings amalgamated, and here we have the resultant structure from those works. This more zoomed in drawing of the front elevation. Here we have the side elevations of the building as extended, and you can see the changes that have been made to the roof form there to provide additional accommodation space. Whilst increasing the amount of units within the curtilage of the site may be acceptable in principle, the housing mix is not suitable due to the focus on smaller units, given the growing need for family housing and the suburban location of the site. The character and appearance of the development would not be compatible with surrounding development, which is primarily of two-storey dwellings, and the amalgamation of the buildings would result in an erosion of visual gaps, which are an important feature of the street scene and help to maintain the suburban nature of it. The remodelling of the roof line, which incorporates a large area of crown roofing, results in the building appearing bulky, unbalanced and rather oppressive. Although the scheme has been modified since submission following comments from our landscape officer relating to provision of trees, and more trees are due to be retained, there would still need to be a fair amount of clearance of site, and there would also be hard standing provided to the rear on the currently lawned garden for parking. Concern has also been raised over the practicality of some of the tree protection measures incorporated in the amendments. I believe the addendum clearly sets out our concerns regarding car parking, so I won't linger on that. There's also concern over the floor space of the units provided, particularly in the case of flats which have been marked up as studio flats but show accommodation for 2 people. The floor space provided in these units falls below the minimum standard for 1-bedroom flats. No affordable housing provision has been made. The submitted viability assessment has been independently assessed, and following that, the response was that it would be expected for at least 5 affordable units to be provided on site, or a contribution of £525,809 to be paid. The applicant has not indicated any willingness to do this. The application has also not demonstrated that acceptable measures have been taken to prevent an increase in flood risk, or that acceptable noise insulation measures have been adopted within the building. As a result, the application is recommended for refusal for the reasons set out in the report. Thank you.
Okay, this has 9 refusal reasons, so unless somebody wants to debate those, I go Councillor Yarra, Councillor Dillon.
Well, as it is in my ward, I'll kick it off. I mean, you've already mentioned it, 9 reasons for refusal. I think that's the most I've seen on the report. We've come close to it, but I think this has got the record. I'm delighted it's down for refusal, and I'll say we should accept the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Dillon.
Just pretty much the same. I think we'll find it difficult to argue with 9 reasons.
In that case, we won't. It's proposed and seconded that we support the officer recommendation for refusal. All those in favour of refusal, please clearly show. Thank you very much indeed. 7:10. Thank you. Not bad. For those